The most important country in Asia isn't China, not the US, not even Singapore. It's the one sitting where global trade, military power, and money collide. And right now, the world is watching it in silence. The most dangerous places in global politics are not always the loudest. They are the quiet intersections. The places where ships pass, money flows, and decisions ripple outward before anyone notices. Right now, that place is the Philippines, not China, not the United States, not even Singapore. The Philippines. This is the country global powers are tracking, not with speeches or headlines, but with maps, simulations, and contingency plans. Not because it dominates the world, but because the world quietly passes through it. Here's the uncomfortable reality. If the Philippines vanished from the map tomorrow, the global economy would still function. But it would function under stress. Insurance costs would jump. Shipping schedules would tighten. Military patrols would increase. And small delays would begin compounding into systemic risk. That's how you know a country matters. Empires don't always pivot around capitals or currencies. Sometimes they rotate around geography. And geography never negotiates. To understand why the Philippines has become impossible to ignore, you have to stop thinking in borders and start thinking in water. Pull up a maritime map. To the west lies the South China Sea, one of the busiest commercial waterways on Earth. To the east stretches the open Pacific, the highway linking Asia to the Americas. Between them sits an archipelago that acts like a hinge between two oceans. Nearly a third of global maritime trade either passes through or depends on the stability of waters surrounding the Philippines. Energy shipments, consumer goods, food supplies, industrial components that keep factories running from Shanghai to Chicago. These ships don't have endless freedom of movement. They funnel through narrow corridors, choke points, predictable lanes that can't simply be rerouted without cost. The Philippines doesn't just sit near these routes. It sits beside several of the most sensitive ones. That reality shapes how China sees the region. China's economy breathes through the sea. Oil arrives by tanker. Raw materials follow. Finished goods leave the same way. Any uncertainty along these routes doesn't just raise costs. It threatens long-term growth planning. This is why Beijing fixates on maritime access. Not symbolism, not pride, stability. The United States looks at the same waters differently. For Washington, these sea lanes are the backbone of a global system it helped design. American naval dominance isn't charity, it's infrastructure. When trade flows smoothly, power concentrates quietly. When routes become contested, everything becomes more expensive. Alliances, deterrence, even peace. Then there's Singapore. Singapore doesn't shout, it calculates. It thrives by reading systems early and positioning itself where power moves, not where cameras point. Capital, logistics, data, and diplomacy all pass through it. Singapore watches the Philippines not as a rival, but as a variable, one that can either dampen regional friction or amplify it. For decades, the Philippines was treated as strategically important but operationally limited. Strong geography, weak leverage, a nation shaped by history more than intention. That assumption no longer holds. The Philippines today is unfinished, but unfinished countries are often the most volatile variables in global systems. Its population is young. Its economy is expanding. Its cities are modernizing. And most importantly, its leaders are rediscovering strategic choice. It is no longer defaulting to alignment. It is experimenting with leverage, and leverage makes powerful countries nervous, because leverage forces others to adapt. But what happens next will change everything. In geopolitics, influence often arrives disguised as opportunity. China understood this early. Infrastructure financing, ports, roads, development capital. The offer was simple. Build faster today, pay later. It worked across much of the developing world. But influence purchased through dependency comes with expiration dates. The Philippines hesitated. Some projects slowed, others were revised, agreements were rebalanced. Instead of deepening reliance, Manila began spreading risk. That decision mattered more than any single contract. At the same time, something else happened quietly. Security cooperation with the United States expanded. Access agreements were renewed. Joint exercises increased, not because the Philippines wanted confrontation, but because it wanted optionality. In global politics, countries without options become instruments. Countries with options become players. This is where many observers misread the situation. They framed the Philippines as choosing sides. It isn't. It is choosing leverage. There's a difference. Choosing sides locks you into someone else's strategy. Choosing leverage forces others to negotiate with yours. Singapore recognized this shift immediately. A Philippines that is economically stronger and diplomatically flexible stabilizes Southeast Asia. A Philippines pushed into dependency or coercion destabilizes it. Beijing noticed too. Recent changes in tone weren't accidental. Public acknowledgement of Philippine strategic importance wasn't praise. It was recognition. Recognition that pressure risks backlash. Recognition that neglect creates competitors. Recognition that the environment has changed. The popular narrative says this is a tug of war between China and the United States. That story is simple and incomplete. The real contest is about shaping incentives. Who makes cooperation cheaper than conflict? Who reduces uncertainty rather than inflaming it? The Philippines sits at the center of that equation. Its ports can facilitate trade or complicate it. Its airspace can enable monitoring or restrict it. Its diplomatic choices can legitimize norms or quietly erode them. None of this requires aggression. It requires alignment. History offers a warning here. Strategic crossroads rarely remain neutral forever. They are nudged, tested, pressured. Sometimes they tip slowly, sometimes all at once. The Philippines has reached the stage where every move is analyzed not for intent, but for consequence. And consequences rarely announce themselves loudly. They show up in shipping premiums, in military planning documents, in capital allocation decisions. This is where most people stop paying attention. And that's the danger. Because the most important shifts in global power don't happen during crises. They happen during adjustments. And this is where this video takes a shocking turn. Singapore's behavior reveals more than its statements. It doesn't seek dominance. It seeks predictability. Stable sea lanes, credible deterrence, balanced relationships. A Philippines that maintains autonomy strengthens the entire system. A Philippines forced into a corner becomes a stress multiplier. This is why all three powers, China, the United States, and Singapore, are reacting to the same realization at the same time. The Philippines is no longer a buffer. It is a node, and systems treat nodes differently. A miscalculation here wouldn't stay local. It would ripple outward. Supply chains would adjust. Insurance markets would react. Military postures would harden. Not with sirens, with spreadsheets. This is the unsettling truth. The future of global order is often shaped not by dramatic confrontations, but by quiet decisions made in places most people underestimate. The Philippines is now one of those places. The real question isn't whether it matters. It already does. The question is whether it can sustain balance under pressure, whether it can convert geography into durable leverage instead of short-term risk, whether it can remain a bridge rather than becoming a battleground. Because once a country becomes strategically central, neutrality stops being passive. It becomes work. China understands this. The United States understands this. Singapore understands this. The world isn't watching the Philippines because war is inevitable. It's watching because choices, and choices made here, will influence how power flows through Asia for decades. History rarely turns on the loudest actors. It turns on those standing quietly at the center, deciding which way the weight falls. What's happening in the Philippines isn't a headline moment. It's a structural shift. Power is moving through trade routes, security arrangements, and economic incentives, not speeches or slogans. And those who recognize this early will shape what Asia becomes next. If this analysis helped you see the system beneath the surface, like the video, subscribe to Economic Tales, and share your perspective below. Do you think the Philippines can maintain balance, or is it being pulled toward a future it won't fully control? Because the most important stories aren't always the ones breaking today. They're the ones quietly rearranging tomorrow.